Good morning. Thanks to everyone for being here at 8:30 on the second day. I heard Neyland was a hit last night. I've been in Knoxville for over 20 years. I came here for graduate school and fell in love with the town and never left. But I actually have never been to a football game, which is like blasphemous in Knoxville. And so you guys have done more than I've done after my 20.
I don't know if I'd admit that in public.
I know. Mayor doesn't want to sit with me anymore. But I'm so excited you were able to see what many think is the crown jewel of our city. And thanks for being back here this morning. So I have the true distinct honor of sitting with three of our champions, three of my friends who are going to give you an elected official's perspective on the work that we do. I can tell you that the three of them have been long champions of education and longtime friends of TnAchieves. Truly, we would not be able to do the work that we've done at such a deep level had it not been for these three gentlemen who continue to stand in the gap for students, who continue to say, like, I'm going to be out front, making sure that students aren't left behind and that we're thinking about education in a new and different way. You heard yesterday about the leadership of Bill Haslam, and I have said to so many communities and states over the years when they ask, like, why did Tennessee have the success that it had, specifically being the first state to launch Tennessee Promise? And I think it really matters if you have a champion. And he began with Randy carrying the flag. And these are the three, when we were asked to put this panel together, that I couldn't wait for you to hear from because they continue to carry the torch for us. So I appreciate you guys all being here. So we're going to jump in. And first, I would love if you would introduce yourself, talk about what part of government that you represent and why you thought pursuing that role was an important role. You want to kick us off, Mayor Jacobs?
Sure. I'm Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs, obviously Knox County. For me, when we think about our local economy, really the success that we're going to have in the future is dependent on the workforce that we're able to field. When we talk to companies that are interested in coming here, it used to be, am I not turned? All right. See, working together.
Absolutely.
All right. Is that better? Yeah. All right. Yeah, so I'm Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs. Obviously, I represent Knox County. For me, the workforce that we're able to field has a big impact on our economic success in the future. Companies nowadays don't so much ask like they used to about whether you have a site that they could locate at, some of these other things. Now it's all about talent. Look across the country and just see how competitive everything is. And they want to know the jobs that they're bringing can be filled, as well as the companies that are already here when they're expanding and growing. They want to know that the jobs that they have can be filled. And when we look at the global economy, it's technology and innovation based now. It's no longer in the days of people standing on assembly lines and putting nuts on bolts. The robots are doing that. The people are programming the robots, doing all those sort of things. So really, not only do we have an interest, obviously, in the individual students, but our success as a community depends on being able to field a competent workforce, and that's all about education.
I think we're good now. We fixed it. Yeah, we're good. I'm Wade Creswell. I'm the Roane County Executive. There's no distinction between a county executive and a county mayor in the state of Tennessee. It's just terminology, really. And I'm blessed to be in the same region as Knox County and being able to serve under the mentorship and partnership of Mayor Jacobs and what he means to our region. And everything that he just described from a workforce perspective applies directly to the rural counties in the region as well. And I represent Roane County, which is just to our west on I-40. And And the reason why it's important from building on everything he said is true for us as well. But building on that, I'll say that our workforce needs are changing so quickly. I mean, you go back just 4 years and look at the world we're living in to where we're living now, it's really hard to compare. Because if you take that forward and you begin to imagine where we're going to be, it becomes so important to have partners like TnAchieves and all of the entities that are pulling in the same direction on this to remove every single barrier possible so that we can be as agile as possible as our workforce needs change. That's why, that's the most important reason why it's been so important from my perspective, both before I served as a county mayor and now, to be able to, or not to be able to, but to make sure that we are making education and partnering with TnAchieves as high a priority as anything else that we're working on.
Thank you, and thank you, Krissy, and it's such a pleasure. One of the great things about my job is I meet so many people across the state of Tennessee that you get to know that are passionate about what they're doing. But my name is Mark White, and I'm on the other end of the state. My home is Memphis or Shelby County, but my wife, but my wife grew up right down the road in Alcoa, graduated from Alcoa High School, so I was with the superintendent yesterday. What I really enjoy doing, I represent all 95 counties because as I go around the state, I'm spending 10 days up in this part of East Tennessee meeting with leadership and school directors and all. But I served in the Tennessee General Assembly. When we go back in January, that will begin my 15th year. Hard to believe that I convinced the voters down in Shelby County to put me back that many times, but I'm really glad I have been there that long, and I'll share more of that in a minute. But I chair the Education Committee and now just finished 9 years on that, and we're always just looking for ways to better improve education.
Thank you, guys. So rural, urban, and a statewide perspective for us this morning. So we're going to start with Chairman White. You're a huge proponent of education. Chairman, share with us the why behind your passion and how that translates into your role as chairman of the House Education Committee.
Thank you, Krissy. Yeah, I guess, of course, I love education, first and foremost, like everyone, each of y'all do. I think Nelson Mandela, I love one of his quotes, and y'all are familiar with it, where he said that education is the most powerful weapon which one can use in order to change the world. So true. So true. Education just means everything in an individual's life. I started out my career as a school teacher and a principal, a seventh grade teacher. I love seventh graders, and I would love to go back in the classroom, but I don't know if I could do it anymore. It's a hard job. Congratulate any teachers out there. Just have a passion for their work. But let me give you a concrete example of why I have a passion and why I know education works firsthand. 22 years ago, I started working in the country of Panama for young people that are living on dirt floors, had nothing close to between Panama City and Columbia. And so we started a scholarship program. And I just want to give you 3 examples. These are children who had nowhere to go, nothing, but we put them through school down there. Young man by the name of Jose Poveda. We got him through. He went on and got a degree in maritime studies. He now pilots oil tankers all over the world. He's been in ports that I will never see, making a fantastic living in the country of Panama. There's a young lady on our program, Ladis Valdez. She lived way down close to Columbia, grew up with her grandmother on a dirt floor, and she now is working on her master's in industrial engineering in Panama City. And then there's a young lady who I just saw about 2 weeks ago in Panama, Stephanie Camarena. Met her when she was 9 years old. And we got her all the way through college. She then got a scholarship from the Panama government. She studied 2 years in Spain, and she now has a degree in early childhood development, a master's degree. And she was down in a little town with us in Tortee, about 150 miles from Columbia, and she's working with the young people. One young lady has a cerebral palsy or disease, and she's working with her on that. So what I'm saying is education changes a person's life and what they're able to give back. I've seen it firsthand, like y'all have.
I love that so much. And I love that you're bringing those experiences from Panama and thinking about how that translates for all students. Mayor Jacobs, we'll turn to you next. So, as you know, COVID resulted in a stark decline in our state's college going rate, also true for the country. We recently announced a 70 by 2024 goal. The idea was to get everybody on board in the community to bring students back into the post-secondary pipeline. I remember sitting down with you, and you said yes before the ask even was complete. Talk to me about why you jumped on board. You've talked about the importance of education, but why 70 by 24, why that's so important. And I love how you define college. So can you talk about your passion for technical education?
Sure, that's a great question, and excuse me, thank you. When I think about post-secondary enrollment, it is exactly that. It's post-secondary enrollment. Sometimes it's four-year university. Sometimes it's community college in preparation for four-year university or certification. Sometimes it's technical college, might be the military. We just started an apprenticeship center here for people that are already in the workforce and building trades and looking to advance in that. Everybody's going to take a different career path. Okay, all of us, I believe, are given gifts that are unique. And unfortunately, I think for many, many years, the education system basically pigeonholed every kid and said the pathway to success is you graduate college, graduate high school, you enroll in college, you take on a lot of debt, you try to figure it out, you get some sort of degree, and you go out and conquer the world. That has not been the recipe for success. I think for me that truly when we're thinking about education in terms of giving young people the skills that they need to thrive, it's really about exposing them to different pathways so that they can discover what their purpose is, what their meaning is, and then acquire the skills that they need to achieve that. Here in Knox County Schools, we have a program that we're working with the Ford Foundation on their Next Generation Learning Program. I'm super excited about that. It goes to an academy model where different high schools offer different career paths. And also for far too long, education has been somewhat insular, right? At least here in Knox County, as far as schools were the educators, they did that job, stay out of our lane. Well, the problem is, again, ultimately the goal of the education system is to help people thrive out in the real world. And the real world didn't have a whole lot of input into what was really happening out there. So I'm really happy, so this is, a lot of it is also about partnering with business and industry so that they have a seat at the table and they can inform the educators and the kids, this is what we really need. So again, for me, it's just everybody's going to take a different pathway, and it's encouraging young people especially to explore and get some exposure to what those different pathways are.
Yeah, I really love that because what the mayor has done here specifically is put a big tent around the word college and said that everybody needs something after high school. It's choose your own adventure. But I also think you made a great point. It's about exposing students to what actually exists after high school and really trying to help them understand that it's our technical colleges are not like the dirty jobs in factories anymore. And the mayor has been a really strong proponent of that. Okay, Mayor Creswell, we're going to turn to you. Roane County has also set what Randy refers to as a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal around college going. Talk to me from your perspective, chamber president before you became county executive. What are the unique challenges rural communities face when trying to move the needle for students?
Yeah, thank you, Krissy. And I really wish I had talked to Mayor Jacobs before we came here today because he has stolen all the good answers here. Yeah, he does it. He does it all the time, man. But the point is, you don't have to be original to be effective or good. And Mayor, he didn't say it in his announcement, but what he has announced throughout the county is a goal for Knox County students to hit a 70% college going rate by 2024. So we just duplicated that and said Roane County is going to try to hit a 70% college going rate by 2025 because we're getting started a year later. And at first, when Krissy and I were talking about this, and the Tennessee Chiefs staff, I was like, man, that seems like a big jump. But we were at 68% just 6 years ago, and we've seen that drastic a drop. We're down at 52% now, so it's very achievable. But you improve at the things that you measure and you pay attention to. So I think first and foremost, to answer your question, is you have to have leadership, not just the singular, mayoral leadership, but a team of leaders throughout the county making this a priority. That's the first thing. And then specific to us in rural communities, I think building on what Mayor Jacobs said about career awareness, you have to be very specific in rural communities to building career awareness for the opportunities that you have most available to you. In Roane County, the Oak Ridge Reservation, a little over half of the Oak Ridge Reservation is in Roane County. So, and this isn't specific to the county, this is specific to the region as well, that Mayor Jacobs touched on in apprenticeship options. There are many apprenticeship options that normally wouldn't necessarily be classified as post-secondary. However, those apprenticeships are plentiful and they are tied to very good paying jobs. So I bring that up to say that we have to be as diverse as possible in the way that we look at our career pathways, and then as intentional as possible in making sure that all of our students are exposed to as many of those career pathways as possible as soon as possible. And I think that's one of our biggest challenges now, is taking this approach to exposure to the career pathways that are most available to them, and that could make the biggest difference in their potential earnings and to the community at large. We need to be very focused on starting as early as possible. So I think over time you'll see us making goals like this, like a 70% college going rate, but those efforts are going to have to start, not just as freshmen, but in sixth graders and eventually third graders.
I think that's really great. Okay, this next question is for all of you. So now that we've said in Tennessee we're putting a big tent around the word college, right? Big tent around that word, post-secondary, something after high school. We continue to face pushback, though. How many of you in here have heard not everybody needs to go to college? I hate that so much. Which kids don't get to go to college, right? We have a value proposition challenge, I think, in Tennessee, but also across the country. So from your perspective, what would you say to students or families about the why behind college? Whoever wants to jump in. Yeah.
I'll start, and it's really a good point, and I'm glad that this point is being brought up. I hear this in the General Assembly. For a long time, back when I was in college and in high school, there's a lot of VOTEC or CTE, and then that kind of went away, and we went to, there's nothing but, a 4-year. We've got to get back to the balance of higher education is everything. Finish K through 12. In the committee that I chair, we not only deal with issues of K through 12, but also higher education. So we have the whole spectrum, which gives me a broad look at the entire thing. But we need, everything you said is right. The business community, the workforce is crying out loud for those who have CTE careers and things in trade. I was talking to a lady up in Dyer County in West Tennessee, and they can't find a plumber. Happened. Everything just kind of went away, it seems like. And that's true in every field, teachers and whatnot. But we need to preach that higher education is everything. And we need to start as early as we can in our K through 12 and continue. Learning is a lifelong process. And about 6 years ago, I went back and took a master's in conflict resolution, conflict management. One of the best things I ever did for myself, because it totally changed the way I think about conflict. We deal with it a little bit in the General Assembly from time to time. Thought it might help me. But so dealing with conflict is a learning process. And so so learning is lifelong. You never get through. So anyway, I stop
there. Those are great points, Representative White. And I think building on that, what we need to look at higher education as an integrated model. And I think that's something that President Boyd here is doing. For instance, you're talking about, not being able to find a plumber, okay? There are huge opportunities in the skilled trades. For every skilled tradesperson leaving the workforce, there's only one person there to take their place. Okay? But you go in, you get the skills to be a plumber. But what happens if you want to start your own shop? Then you have to get the skills to be a business owner. And those are different things. What happens if you come from an at-risk community, you get the skills to be a plumber, then you get the skills to be a business person, and you go back to that community and open your shop. You start employing people from that community in your shop. It changes the community. So I once heard Governor Haslam say that education is the great equalizer, right? And the skills that you learn, and they are lifelong learning, it is lifelong learning. But nevertheless, in the end, that's how people improve their lives, and that's how we can all improve our communities. I was talking with the dean of whatever the program's called here, construction sciences or whatever, but he was suffering because they teach people to become supervisors and foremen at construction sites. You get like a master's degree and whatever, right? Their pipeline's empty because no one's getting into the building trades. So again, that integrated model of the fact that no one is getting into the technical colleges for this particular course actually ends up having an impact on your four-year universities. So I've been really happy to see where President Boyd's moving, and I think the state is moving as well with a more integrated model among technical colleges, the community colleges, as well as the four-year universities.
This is a great question because I think we're able to build off each other. Carrying that forward, I would say at the local level, really at every level, I think there's an opportunity here and almost a responsibility for us to create a culture where education at all levels is truly valued, where education is seen as the higher degree of education you have is truly creates more doors for you to walk through. I think you look at other cultures, other countries where they don't have the opportunity that we have here, the incredible opportunities that we have here. I think educational opportunities are probably valued to a higher degree in some cases. So I think there's an opportunity and a responsibility that we have as leaders in our community to help create a culture where our children truly value how much of a life changer education can truly be, as opposed to taking things for granted or just not pursuing the opportunities that are available to learn what career pathways are available to them. I think people only pay attention to what they see. So you have so many kids just paying attention to teacher and policemen and just the things right in front of them. And I think there's an opportunity and a responsibility on our part to create that culture from the ground up, so the demand side of this equation, so that students are demanding more and more opportunities, as opposed to us trying to push it down from the top from the education side of things.
No, I love all those answers. And as you're sitting here, I was thinking about, I don't know if John Jones is in the room, but he and I were having a conversation yesterday because he was like, gosh, in Ohio, we need the leadership like you have in Tennessee, who has been at the forefront of statewide college promise, who's owning this type of work in their local communities. As you're talking about the value proposition, what strikes me is that you all three of you, I know you well, you care deeply about students, but this is about students and it's about economic viability. Talk to me how you would talk to all three of you, what you would say to other states, your peers in other states, about why this work is so critical and why you're invested in this work.
It's our community success is at stake. When you look at the global economy, we're not here in Tennessee, in East Tennessee, we're not just competing with Nashville and Atlanta and Charlotte. We're competing with Beijing, Hong Kong, Perth, Australia, Dresden, Germany, London, England. And how can we do that? And one of the things that we can do, we all work together as a region, but the other thing we can do is we have to have that workforce. The global economy, and we always, as local leaders, you always want the big manufacturing deal because I got a big footprint and all this stuff, but that's not what's driving the local economy. It's innovation and technology, the global economy. It's innovation and technology. That means that, as Mayor Creswell said, it's a lifelong thing. Okay, you're no longer, everything is changing, it's evolving, and it's no longer you're going to graduate high school and go work at a factory and you're set. No, in order to work at that factory, you have to continue upskilling. Okay, no matter what you're doing from here on out with our economy, you have to continue upscaling, which means it is lifelong learning. So that's what I would just say is I believe it's the key to the success for your area. And a lot of the issues that especially local government people face, they kind of disappear when folks have good jobs, when there's money coming into the community. I can deal with potholes being fixed and a lot of those things. What I can't deal with is when people say, how am I going to put food on my family? What kind of future, food on my table, what kind of future my kid's going to have? And by having great opportunities, again, which is a direct result of your education system, those problems kind of take care of themselves.
Amen. Again, but building on that too, if you look at Governor Haslam's leadership when he came into office and started the Drive to 55 campaign, it was as a result of the fact that for years, the state of Tennessee had struggled in our educational rankings nationally. So I go back to one of the things I said earlier is you improve in the things that you measure and prioritize. So what I would say to other states is the state of Tennessee has, and because Randy announced yesterday we had moved from 32% to 46%. And because it's a priority, we will continue to move in the right direction there. So for other states, if it's a matter of priority, again, you'll improve in the things that you prioritize. I'm very thankful that as a state we have done this, and we are up here on this panel because Krissy's recognized that we prioritize this in our communities and will continue to do so as well.
Yeah, just sit here thinking of all the things we could respond to that. As you go, like y'all, we get to sit on a lot of boards and things around the country. And as you know, every state's struggling with education around. Next week, there's a board called National Assessment of Educational Progress, or NAEP, the nation's report card. And so I'll be up on that board meeting and looking for answers, but there's a lot of states that are represented. And you see the ones. Let me kind of make this point. We mentioned the word leadership several times. You have got to have leadership. I'm a big believer that money is required to get something done, but without the proper leadership, you can throw all the money in the world on an issue and it just goes to naught. You've got to have that leadership, and so I'm so grateful for what the past in our state through President Boyd, Governor Haslam, and all those that are engaged around doing this. So leadership, but every state is looking for it. If we, in Tennessee, which I represent, if we don't do everything we can, the jobs are going to go elsewhere. Like I say, I'm from West Tennessee. The Ford plant, Blue Oval City, just moved, announced about a year or so ago. They're looking for 5,000 immediately. Probably with all the spin-offs and all the other industry coming in, 25,000 people. And so we've got a big job to do in front of us.
I have other questions, but questions from the audience, guys? You want to take a couple of questions? Anybody have any questions in the audience? Everybody's still sleepy this morning. Too much Neyland Stadium. Anybody? Tish.
Talk about kindergarten. Why do we just talk about kindergarten to post-secondary? Why aren't we talking about birth to post-secondary? It starts in the beginning. Everyone wants to say a child's learning begins at birth, but we don't teach them that their future depends on what happens from birth through high school.
Yeah, we are blessed in East Tennessee to have one of the most amazing people ever to live, I think, in Dolly Parton, who started the Imagination Library, where every child in the region is signed up in the OB unit, really, when they're born, to receive a book once a month throughout until they're in a kindergarten. I'm not sure when that expires, but that program has seen incredible success. 5 years old, yeah. So yeah, I played right into your hands with the question, right? Yeah. But it's made an incredible difference in East Tennessee for sure. I know that's expanded through other states and countries, and I think that's probably the primary way East Tennessee actually that we've seen success in that area. Gentlemen, anything you want to add?
Right, and I'm so glad you brought that up. And we do need to talk about that from zero through all the way through a lifelong of learning. And if we don't capture it, and I think that's a lot of the issues, Dave, if you don't capture that in the early years, and y'all all know this, was it 2 million brain cells a second are developing? And if you're not challenging that child during those ages, especially 0 to 2, 0 to 3, then those brain cells are not connecting the way that they're designed to. So we need to start early. One thing I've enjoyed, having served in the General Assembly for 14 years, I'm now seeing long-term trends. And one reason I'm grateful that we're focusing on higher education is because now I'm realizing we need to go back into 0 through 12 because, let me give you some statistics. Of course, we did a lot with early childhood literacy and things like that. Now we'll give you some data points, but you can always debate data. But to make my point, when we dealt with third grade retention last year, it was because we're always hearing about only 34% of our third graders are moving on to fourth grade with reading proficiency. 34%. That leaves 66% basically who are not. When you get out of 12th grade, we also hear if you want to go on to higher education, 66% need remediation. Same thing, 34, 66, 66, 34. 34% are okay. So something is this gap between K through 12, then on higher education, it lines up. And so that's how by doing what we're doing in higher education, it helps me now to the long-term trend says, well, we need to go back. In 0 to 3, 0 to 8, all the way to 0 through lifetime, we need to focus on it.
I think it's also important that we recognize that parents obviously have huge impact on their kids' lives, okay? I think that, unfortunately, schools have been saddled, in many cases, they're not just centers for education and academics, but they also become community hubs, which when we look at the whole public school system, the whole thing has changed, especially from when I was a kid. So I think one thing that we can do as well is equip parents with some of the tools that they might need. Here in Knox County, we have a program called Parents as Teachers, and the whole point is to help parents kind of tutor them to become better teachers for their kids. So I don't think it's not just about formal schooling, but it's also about family engagement and sometimes helping the families get the tools that they need to become, I don't want to say better teachers, but maybe more informed about education and what their kids are going to need, because it's exactly right. A lot of times a young person is coming into kindergarten and they're behind already before they even get there, right? And that's going to be reflected in those third grade literacy rates, which is then reflected in high school graduation rates. So I absolutely agree with you, and I think one of the things that we can do is really have an impetus on parents as teachers before the kids ever get into school.
Krissy, can I add something to that? That's such a good point. I met with the superintendent in Blount County yesterday over here in Alcoa, and we were talking about the mental health issues that are affecting a lot of our children in our schools now. And we got to thinking, we put a lot of responsibility on our teacher accountability, for school accountability, and trying to we put a lot of burden on in that area. I think we're going to need to focus a lot more on parental accountability. We have too many children come to school or not coming to school because the parent doesn't take the initiative to get them there. So I think, Mayor, you're right on track.
We've got a question over here. Morning. My name's Karen Treese. I'm with Mortec in Memphis, Tennessee, and thank you all for the work you're doing, especially Representative White. He has supported our school tremendously. One of the things I just wanted to get your thoughts on, we are a trade school, basically, post-secondary. We do offer associate degrees in like welding, machining, those kind of things. We also have agreements with some pretty respectable four-year institutions where they can get credits for those technical classes toward a bachelor's of science. Do you see that expanding? Because I see that as a great opportunity for our students to, they're graduating, they're getting jobs, and then they can also get their bachelor's online through these institutions. It kind of seems like a win-win for everybody. Just some thoughts on that?
Exactly, and appreciating Mortec. Yeah, I carry a bill for Mortec every year. The director, Skip Redmond, he would come haunt me if I didn't. He's quite a passionate person about it. Yeah, one thing we're trying to actually move the state. We haven't done a good job, in my opinion, in the past. Is we need stackable credentials, like things that they get in a trade school, and make sure they can take those instead of starting. If they then go to a 2-year or to a 4-year, and they got to start all over again. Let each credential be stackable to where then they just move forward. And so I think that's what you're referring to. And so we're really pushing that right now in the education.
I think also, too, I think we're seeing it. I'm sure you're probably seeing it, too, but ecosystems that of all levels of education and in the workplace, too, where you have complementary programs from the K through 12, technical, community college, university level, and in the workplace, all designing programs that to create pipelines to meet needs. Obviously, I would hope that we are on the front end of seeing a lot more of that develop, because healthy regional ecosystems are going to be very dependent on that approach, I think.
Both of my daughters are nurses, and they followed this pipeline model that we're talking about. When they graduated from high school, both of them went to Walter State Community College in Morristown, got their RN certification and their associate degrees. Then they spent 8 to 10 years in the workforce with Dad encouraging them to go back and get their BSNs, and they finally did listen to me. And then they both went to King University, received their BSNs, and also advanced degrees. So one of my daughters is a nurse practitioner. The other has her MBA in healthcare administration. And it's just the pipeline. And it's exactly what they went through. They didn't want to go directly into a 4-year university to get their BSNs. They wanted to spend some time in the workforce, which is great. But I think it needs to go down lower as well. Krissy and I met the other day, and we're talking about dual enrollment at high schools. Here in Knox County, we have a unique high school. It's called the Career Magnet Academy. They are on the campus of Pellissippi State University at Strawberry Plains. Some of those kids graduate high school. Some of those kids at graduation already have their associate's degrees before they technically get their high school diplomas. A while back, some of our folks went over to Research Triangle in Raleigh to see what they're doing. It's the state's largest community college, and it's embedded in some of the high schools there. So I think that it really even goes down, as Mayor Creswell was talking about, the stackable credentials and that pipeline begins, really, I would like to see it almost in middle school, but certainly in high school, to give kids more opportunities to get those dual enrollment hours.
Hi, Rosie Cloud, National College Promise. We talk a lot about these kids, and obviously we're touching many first-generation kids across the country, and what we find is many of their parents are incredibly time poor, right? They're braiding together jobs, trying to meet basic needs. And so, as you mentioned, these kids are very much left on their own, so they're relying on those interventions. A lot of what we've talked about and at a national level talk about is the fact that wealth building is not part of the conversation as we're doing career advising. And in many states, and I can't speak for Tennessee, but I'll speak for my home state of Virginia, the ratio of advising is incredibly terrifying. The average, at least in our area, which is Fairfax County, a well-known, affluent county, the average teen gets 10 minutes a year for college advising. And so I don't know what you're doing in your community, but it seems that those interventions are critical if we're going to introduce a conversation And again, I do think part of advising on career also needs to be coupled with building wealth, because that is a very important part of this conversation, is how do we introduce those wealth building skills into these kids as well.
I love the question, and I think it speaks to something I said a while ago about how we have an opportunity and a responsibility to build a culture that values education. So when you mention we don't speak about wealth building when we do advisement, I would add we don't necessarily speak about the value of education towards wealth building. So we need to take that back. And one of the ways we certainly need to be paying attention to do that is through access to advisement, mentorship, coaching, all of those things to help kids be aware of the choices that are available to them, aware of the programs that can remove barriers, and just somebody to speak into their life to talk to them about how education can open doors that nothing else can. I think we had to start, going back to the first question about from birth up, to build that culture, and then as leaders create programs that are expanding those coaching, advisement, and mentorship opportunities. It's one of the reasons why it was so easy. I could just see it immediately, why TnAchieves could be such a game changer in the state, and has been, of course, because the coaching and the mentorship aspect of the program is the secret sauce. And I think we just got to keep expanding on that.
Right, which is why this conference is so important. It takes leadership. You know, some areas are doing quite well, and some are not. You've got to have that leadership, which is what y'all are focused on. And another thing, one of the things I found out, I've lived long enough now to realize you got to keep reinventing the wheel. Every generation, education, you know, you think we can build upon things, and we do, but things can go away so quickly if every generation in leadership doesn't continue to focus on exactly what you're talking about. More when I was a young person, you got more of it from the home than the children are getting now. Well, we can't say that's an excuse, so let's just not try. But so you've got to have that leadership, and what y'all are doing, this conference is just so important because you're addressing that.
If I could also add, we have programs in Tennessee that are adding bandwidth in the high schools. So this year, under the 70 by 24 umbrella, we raised private philanthropy to do a 5-year pilot in Knox County. It's called Knox Access, where we are embedding a TnAchieves employee in the high schools to do that high-touch advising. And I'll be honest with you, when we first launched and I sat down with all the school counselors, I really thought that they would be like, not your lane, right? Like, you do the post-secondary work. But they were all, I shared this with the mayor, like relieved to have help in this space so they can do school counseling things. And we could really focus on building upon our expertise of getting students into the pipeline. The Ayers Foundation, Troy Grant was here yesterday. They do deep dive in rural communities. Chairman White, is very familiar with the work that they do. It is a 1 counselor to 100 student ratio in rural communities in an attempt to move the needle. So there are external too organizations across the state that are doing some deep investment. Governor Lee has invested heavily, specifically in the Ayers Foundation, in at-risk communities, and they have a great model. Just a little ad there. We've got 4 minutes. Any last question from the group? Okay, we've got one.
Thanks. Yesterday, we heard a really interesting presentation from the Helios Foundation, and they showed some visualizations that they're using in Arizona. And in the presentation, they used the word parity, opportunity, equality. And many of us have been using words like diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then all of a sudden, a lot of those words became buzzwords. So we're trying to find our way through a different kind of communication. And I wondered, you know, I'm in Washington, D.C. It is so polarized right now. It's painful to be there. and to watch the news last night or 2 nights ago in the election. So I just wondered if you had any advice on language to actually come to a common ground to help people understand what we're talking about here.
I think the one word I would use would be opportunity. Opportunities for everybody. Look, we're not all equal in that we don't have equal gifts or any of those things. We're all different. It's the opportunity to figure out what your gifts are and then use those to contribute to society and therefore improve your own condition. I would say the opportunity.
Yeah, and we have to be, especially in politics, we have to be aware. Sometimes if say legislation comes along and it's got certain terminology with it, well, it could be dead in the water real quick, depending on the majority of your political body. So we have to watch things like that. And I guess what I'm trying to say, pay attention who you vote for. It's really, really important. We whether it be in Washington, we have extremes on the right and extremes on the left. And when you get the extremes where people don't come together and work together anymore and try to find solutions, then things stagnate and they don't work. So, but we living in a time where you can say DEI and it could kill. So in the Tennessee General Assembly, it could kill it real quick. So, but we need to work together. I think the mayor is exactly right. Opportunity. We are all given a unique gift when we're born. And some people, I wish I could sing. I wish I could play a musical instrument, but I can't. That's not my gift. I wish I was an artist. That's not my gift. And we all have different gifts. So let's build upon that gift through a lifetime and shine where we are.
You backing out for time? You got something really brilliant to say. I know,
I would just say,
come on.
When we're focused as leaders, as whatever role we are, on making sure that we're creating opportunities for every single child, no matter what, then it cuts through so much. As long as we are truly making sure that the opportunities that we're moving forward to do really remove as many possible barriers as we can see, as we can find. And in that way, we all end up pulling in the same direction, which is unique in the world that we live in right now, and would be very refreshing to be able to approach it in that way. So just building off their answers, absolutely, and it was just one of the things that makes it so exciting, and it's easy to be passionate about something like this effort, like College Promise and TnAchieves, and because it is working towards accomplishing those very things.
Thank you all. In a time where I think leadership matters more than ever, I'm so thankful for your support and your friendship. Please join me in thanking our panel.
Thank you so much to everyone on this panel. This is wonderful. And thank you, Krissy, for moderating. You're going to notice that the giant screen is coming down, and because it is so giant, it takes a minute. So